Hey everyone, my name's Ian Koniak, and today I'm going to talk about the Achiever's Dilemma. Now, if you've never heard of the Achiever's Dilemma, this is something that many high achievers face, and it's very, very difficult. I've dealt with it my whole life, and it still hasn't gone away despite most of my efforts, but it's gotten certainly a lot better over the years. So what it is it's the feeling where if you're a high achiever, it's the feeling like you're never doing enough. No matter how much you're doing, no matter how much money you're making, no matter how successful you are, no matter how much you're hitting your goals, you still feel like you're never doing enough. And it's a feeling of guilt or shame that comes from not getting the things you set out to do done during a day, during a week, whatever. And so even in the eyes of other people, you might be successful. In your own eyes, you feel like you're not living up to your own standards. You're not performing to your full potential. And it's just something that is really difficult to manage and to work through because it doesn't go away if you have very, very high standards for yourself. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to address the Achiever's Dilemma and make it less of an issue where you're not always feeling guilt or shame, because that guilt or shame can follow you around. It can follow you on the weekends. It can follow you on the nights. It can impact how you engage or interact with your family. And it can impact the lives of others that love and support you in a negative way. So it's really important to address it. And I don't know if I'm going to give you a perfect roadmap for it, but I'll try to give you what's worked for me. Knowing that I am still a work in progress, and this is something that I very much still face on a regular basis. So let's talk about some remedies to beat yourself up less. First thing is to set clear boundaries. Number one, set clear boundaries. And what I mean on setting clear boundaries is work boundaries, okay? I work around 45 hours per week, consistently every week. I start at 8 and I stop at 6, and I take an hour break every day for lunch with my wife. So having those boundaries makes it so that I'm forced to get everything that I need to get done within that day. And part of the challenge with an Achiever's Dilemma is you never get everything you want to get done in that day or even that week. And so it feels like you're always behind. But if you set these boundaries, you can actually learn to accept, hey, I've done all I can. My boundaries are what's most important, so I can actually be present with my family. I can be present with my personal life if you don't have a family. And work expands to fill the time allotted. So if you allot 60 hours, it's going to take you 60 hours. If you allot 80 hours, you're going to take 80 hours. So it's really important for high achievers to set those boundaries and only allot a certain amount of work that they need, so that you're basically not, I'm going to block my wife. She's like in the background there. So you're not beating yourself up when you're not working. It's like you're forced to accept, I've done what I can. This is my time with my family. I'm not going to take time away from them because I wasn't efficient. And it ends up creating a lot more efficiency and productivity in that time by setting boundaries, which is really important, okay? Number two is achievers want to take on everything. They want to take on way too much, and they often have a hard time saying no. So I found what really works well is to define the important activities you need to spend time on for the specific goals and objectives that you want in your sales or in your business. And by defining those things, it can enable you to say no to everything else, okay? So for example, I have, my business is doing about $1.5 million a year. It did last year, and it's probably gonna grow to I'm guessing 2.5 this year. But revenue growth is not my number one priority right now in this season. Right now, my number one priority is actually hiring and delegating. So when I look at my goals for Q1, it's all about finding people where I can get out of working in the business and start working on the business. Because right now I'm really doing a lot more activities that are not as high revenue generating or strategic as I'd like to because I'm busy running the business. So hiring and delegating and taking a step back to actually find those roles is an example of doing what's important to my business. I'm not focused on selling. I'm not taking any more sales calls. I have enough revenue. Now it's about delegating and finding people to run the day-to-day business. That's the first thing. Another example is product development, product enhancement. I'm looking at improving my product, and all of my activities in Q1 are around that. So yesterday, for example, I loaded all of the decks, over 1,000 pages of content for every stage of the strategic sales cycle into the portal because that was something my clients requested. They want to have the decks that I use to teach and to train in my slides. And I gave them all my decks, my templates, my closing decks, my business case decks, my email prospecting samples, everything. So they have it. That took a while, but that's an example of product enhancement, okay? Another example of product enhancement is running live events. I decided to add live events into my program. So now I'm spending more time planning those live events. So product is one, hiring is another one, but I'm not doing revenue activities right now because my revenue is really good. So that's an example of defining the goals. And once you do that, you can say no to the things that aren't aligned, and you could also delegate busy work, which is something that I'm actively doing. I've hired an assistant, I have a marketer, I have just hired a salesperson, and now I'm hiring someone to help manage the community that I've built. So these are all examples of delegation, but you can't do that unless you've defined what's truly important to be working on versus what's a nice to have, okay? Step number 5. So 1 is set clear boundaries. Number 2 is define your work goals. Number 3 is learn to say no. Number 4 is delegate. Number 5 is you want to have space for self-care. You want to have space for self-care. You see, if you're an achiever, a lot of times you're going to prioritize work all the time. You're going to say, I got to work. And your health gets neglected in some cases. I know in the past for me, that's been the case. But when I found that I make self-care part of my daily routine, making time for sleep, exercise, and love, connection, right? Then everything else is much more enjoyable, and I'm actually more efficient and productive in everything else. So making those things just as important as getting work done is absolutely critical for long-term success. Making those things absolutely is important. So for me, that's why I have lunch every day with my wife. That's why I stop working at 6 for family time. After I make this video, I'm headed to the beach to go watch the sunset with my family. These are all things that I do for self-care to stay connected, okay? The other thing I do is I make time for coaching. I have a coach that I meet with every 2 weeks, and that gives me space to make sure I'm aligned, that I'm working towards what I really want, that I'm connecting to my greater vision and purpose. So making those things a priority, I think, is really important for high achievers versus just getting work done, so that your success is sustained and you don't have burnout in the long run, okay? And the last thing I'll say is grace. This idea of grace is not every day can be perfect. You see, if you're a high achiever and you don't maximize those 9 or 10 hours or whatever that you decide to work, a lot of times you're going to beat yourself up and you say, man, I didn't do what I set out to do. And you're going to feel really guilty. And the reality is not every single day can be 100%. There are days where you go out and you set and you achieve your goals and it feels great. And usually those are days you're exhausted at the end of the day. But there's also other days where you may, take a longer lunch than usual. You may be tired and take a nap. You might take some breaks and go play with your kids or go have a snack or whatever. And those could be longer than what you wanted to do originally. Look, we're human, okay? We're not robots. And to be 100% productive every single day is not necessarily realistic. And so I would just challenge you to really accept that you're not perfect and you'll never be, and give yourself grace in knowing that you're doing your best. And that's what matters most. And that some days are going to be better than others. So I hope this helps for high achievers out there. I'm with you. I can totally relate. And if you struggle from this, shoot me a DM, put a comment in, and share a little bit more about your experience, because I know I'm not alone in this. I know other people are also having the same struggles. So I hope this is helpful for anyone who struggles with the achiever's dilemma. Take care, you guys. I'll see you next week.